Right now, as you lie here, 1.4 kilograms of living tissue is keeping you alive, and it is doing so without asking for permission, without pausing, without ever truly sleeping even when you do. And yet you will never see it, never touch it, never feel it working, only its quiet results. Your breath, your heartbeat, your thoughts drifting like mist across a still lake. Tonight, we explore the most intricate object in the known universe, the human brain. This is not a textbook. This is a gentle wander through the forest of your own mind. Welcome to Drowsy Discovery. Over the next 2 hours, over 100 gentle facts will move through you like soft footsteps on a quiet path. There is nothing to memorize, nothing to remember. Just listen and let your mind drift. Have you ever wondered what strange miracle is happening behind your closed eyes each night? You are not alone. If these quiet journeys help you rest, consider subscribing. Together, we are building a place where curiosity becomes calm, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, let your breath slow. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. The world outside can wait. The brain has been working for billions of years, across billions of creatures. It will still be there in the morning. Let us begin. Your brain holds 86 billion neurons. That number is almost impossible to grasp, and yet it sits quietly inside your skull at this very moment, waiting to be understood, each neuron a tiny spark in an endless and shimmering constellation of thought and feeling. If you could somehow count 1 neuron per second, it would take you nearly 3,000 years to reach the end. And by then, the brain you began with would have changed beyond recognition, its connections rewiring themselves with every passing day. These cells are not merely storage units or simple switches, but living things, growing and reaching toward one another like roots in dark and fertile soil, forming bonds that shape everything you remember, everything you dream, everything you are. You carry within you a universe of soft electrical whispers, and tonight, as every night, they hum softly as you rest. Electrical signals race through your brain every second. These signals move at speeds of up to 120 meters per second, leaping from neuron to neuron through tiny gaps called synapses, carrying instructions for every single thought, every movement, every gentle breath you take without consciously thinking about it. Right now, as you listen carefully to these words, millions of these impulses are firing in incredibly precise and coordinated patterns, translating sound into meaning, meaning into feeling, feeling into the slow drift of sleep. The brain does not rest even when you close your weary eyes, for it is always listening, always processing, always weaving the raw material of the world into the fabric of your experience. It is a vast storm that never stops, and yet somehow it feels like perfect stillness. It is the quietest and most beautiful lightning you will ever know. Your brain uses 20% of your body's energy. Though it weighs only about 1.4 kilograms, roughly 2% of your total body mass, the brain demands far more than its fair share of the fuel your body produces each and every day. It consumes oxygen, glucose, and nutrients at a remarkable rate that would exhaust any other organ, all to keep the vast and endless conversation of your neurons alive and humming. Even while you sleep, the brain continues to burn through energy, consolidating precious memories, meticulously clearing accumulated toxins, and preparing you quietly for yet another waking day ahead. If you feel tired and drained after a long day of intense thinking, it is because you have been running a marathon inside your skull, one that never truly ends. The mind is an extraordinarily expensive thing to keep alive, but it is worth every single calorie it quietly consumes. Unfolded, your cerebral cortex would cover a pillowcase. The outer layer of your brain, the cerebral cortex, is where most of your conscious thinking takes place, and it is folded into deep grooves and ridges to fit inside the remarkably limited space of your skull. If you were to smooth it out completely, it would spread across an area of roughly 2,500 square centimeters, thin as a napkin, but remarkably and beautifully dense, with many billions of neurons and countless connections between them. These folds are not random, but follow patterns that are remarkably similar across all human brains, a shared architecture of thought that connects us all across cultures, languages, and many centuries. Every wrinkle and fold holds an entire lifetime of memories, perceptions, dreams, and deep feelings. You are carrying a crumpled but strangely and wonderfully perfect map of the universe inside your head, and it fits beautifully. Your brain generates enough electricity for a light bulb. The electrical activity of your brain, measured in tiny volts and milliamps, adds up to roughly 10 to 20 watts of power at any given moment, enough energy to dimly light a small household bulb in a dark room. This energy flows through vast and deeply intricate networks of neurons, powering thoughts, sensations, vivid memories, and the constant hum of your subconscious mind as it works beneath awareness. If you could see this activity from the outside, it would look like a flickering galaxy of living light, pulses racing along invisible threads, illuminating pathways that shift and change with every passing thought. Even now, as your body grows still and your breathing gently slows, that faint glow continues, a gentle and persistent candle that never quite goes out. Your remarkable mind is always and forever softly alight, even in the very deepest and most peaceful sleep. A single neuron connects to 10,000 others. Each neuron in your brain reaches out with long, delicate branches called dendrites and axons, forming connections with many thousands of neighboring cells in a web of staggering complexity that defies any easy description or comparison. Multiply this by the 86 billion neurons inside your skull, and you begin to grasp the true and overwhelming scale of the network that makes you who you are. A network with far more connections than there are visible stars in the entire Milky Way galaxy. These connections are not fixed, but constantly changing, strengthening with use, weakening with neglect, rewiring themselves in response to every single experience you have throughout your entire waking and sleeping life. The person you were a year ago had a measurably and slightly different brain. The precise and ever-changing pattern of your connections is a fingerprint that only you will ever possess. And from the architecture of individual cells, we turn now to the larger structures that give your brain its shape. The brain has no pain receptors. The organ that faithfully processes all sensation, including the sharpest pain you have ever felt, cannot feel any pain itself. Surgeons can and sometimes do operate on the exposed brain while patients remain fully awake, asking them questions to ensure critical regions are not damaged during the procedure. The headaches you feel are not the brain hurting, but rather the tissues surrounding it, the surrounding membranes, the nearby blood vessels, the delicate muscles of your scalp, and the very base of your neck. The brain sits quietly in its bony shell like a silent and patient observer, aware of every signal the body sends, but forever incapable of sensing its own presence. It is the one part of you that will never know what it truly feels like to be touched. Even in perfect stillness, it remains entirely invisible to itself. 200 million nerve fibers connect your hemispheres. The two halves of your brain, left and right, are joined together by a thick bundle of roughly 200 million nerve fibers called the corpus callosum, a bridge of densely packed white matter that allows them to share information across the divide at truly extraordinary speed. Without this single vital connection, the hemispheres would work in isolation, each entirely unaware of what the other was doing, and the unified sense of self you take for granted would begin to fracture and fall apart. Every thought you have involves both sides of this bridge, signals racing back and forth many thousands of times per second, coordinating movement, language, emotion, and perception into a single seamless and unified experience. You are not one mind, but two, constantly speaking to each other in hushed silence, across a hidden and remarkable neural highway. Your memories form in a seahorse-shaped structure. Deep within each hemisphere of your brain lies a curved structure called the hippocampus, named after the Greek word for seahorse because of its distinctive and graceful shape. This small but vital region is essential for converting your experiences into lasting memories, taking the fleeting and fragile impressions of each passing day and carefully weaving them into the rich fabric of your past. Without it, you would live in an eternal present, unable to form new memories or recall the faces of those you love most dearly. The hippocampus is also one of the few places in the adult brain where new neurons can still be born, a quiet reminder that even the oldest parts of us are capable of renewal. Every meaningful and cherished memory you hold close tonight is a quiet and precious gift from this tiny and extraordinary seahorse. Your brain stem keeps you breathing without effort. At the base of your brain, where it meets the spinal cord, sits a structure called the brain stem, the oldest surviving part of the human brain in evolutionary terms, and the one most directly responsible for keeping you alive. It controls your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion, and dozens of other vital and essential processes that happen without any conscious thought or awareness whatsoever, ticking along quietly while the rest of your mind wanders through dreams or memories. You do not have to remind yourself to breathe, because the brain stem does it for you every second of every day, from the moment you are born until the moment you die. It is the silent and tireless engine of your existence. And tonight, as it always has, it will faithfully keep you breathing as you sleep. A tiny almond-shaped region processes all your fears. Deep within each hemisphere of your brain sits the amygdala, a small cluster of neurons roughly the size and shape of a single almond, responsible for detecting potential threats in the surrounding environment and triggering the powerful cascade of responses we call fear. When you hear a strange noise in the dark night or sense danger before you can name it, it is the amygdala that sounds the alarm, flooding your body with adrenaline and cortisol, immediately and powerfully sharpening your senses and quickening your heart. This ancient structure does not wait for conscious thought, for there is no time to waste when survival is at stake, and so it acts first and asks questions later. It is the faithful watchman that never sleeps. Even now, as you rest peacefully, it stands guard somewhere out there in the quiet darkness. The cerebellum holds more neurons than the rest combined. Tucked beneath the cerebral hemispheres at the back of your skull, the cerebellum is a densely packed structure containing roughly 50 billion neurons, more than half of all the neurons in your entire remarkable brain. For centuries, scientists thought it served only to coordinate movement, helping you walk, balance, and reach for objects without conscious effort. But recent research suggests it also plays a role in language, attention, and even emotion. It receives signals from across the body and brain, processing them at truly astonishing speed to keep everything running smoothly in the background. You never consciously notice its tireless work, and that is precisely the point, for the very best biological systems are the ones you never have to consciously think about. It is the silent and tireless conductor of your every deliberate and unconscious move. And from the hidden structures within, we now consider what the brain does in the quiet hours of the night. Your sleeping brain is often more active than your waking one. Sleep may feel like stillness, but beneath the surface, your brain is actually working harder than it does during many waking hours. During certain stages, particularly REM sleep, neural activity spikes quite dramatically as the brain carefully processes all of the day's accumulated experiences, consolidates memories, and clears away metabolic waste that built up while you were awake. Dreams unfold like vivid and deeply strange films. Emotions are carefully sorted and filed, and the pathways that matter most are strengthened while those that do not are allowed to fade quietly away. This is not rest in the sense of doing nothing, but rest in the sense of repair, of renewal, of quiet restoration that you never consciously witness. Sleep is when the brain quietly and faithfully tends to itself in the sheltering and gentle dark. During REM sleep, your muscles become completely paralyzed. When you enter the deepest stage of dreaming, your brain sends signals that temporarily paralyze nearly all of your voluntary muscles, a phenomenon called atonia that reliably and faithfully keeps you safe each and every night. This is a crucial and essential safety mechanism, quietly preventing you from acting out the vivid scenes playing in your sleeping mind, from running, fighting, or flailing as your dreams command. Without this paralysis, sleepers would thrash through their nights, risking serious injury to themselves and others, and the boundary between dream and waking would blur in truly dangerous ways. Only your eyes continue to move, darting rapidly beneath closed lids as they follow the images projected by your dreaming brain. Your body lies still while your mind roams free. It is a nightly surrender to the vivid and quiet theater within. Your sleeping brain washes away toxic waste each night. While you sleep, a recently discovered and remarkable system called the glymphatic network goes to work, flushing out the toxic byproducts that silently and steadily build up in your brain during the long waking hours of each day. Cerebrospinal fluid flows through channels alongside blood vessels, washing over neurons and carrying away harmful proteins that, if left to accumulate over months and years, can contribute to diseases like Alzheimer's. This cleansing process is far more active during deep sleep than when you are awake, which may explain why chronic lack of rest leaves the mind foggy, slow, and vulnerable to long-term damage. Sleep is not merely a pause in activity, but an essential maintenance cycle, a nightly rinse that keeps the delicate machinery of thought running clean. Your brain cleans itself quietly and diligently while you dream. Let these thoughts settle gently. There is no need to hold onto any detail. Your brain already knows how to rest. Let it guide you now. Sleep deprivation affects the brain like alcohol. When you have been awake for too long, your brain begins to function as though you were intoxicated, with reaction times slowing, judgment faltering, and memories failing to form properly or consolidate as they normally should. Studies have shown that staying awake for 17 to 19 hours produces cognitive impairments roughly equivalent to a blood alcohol level considered legally drunk in many countries around the world. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and impulse control, is among the very first and most vulnerable regions to suffer, leaving you more irritable, more impulsive, and far less able to concentrate on the task at hand. Sleep is not an optional luxury, but a fundamental biological necessity, as essential to your brain as food and water are to your body. Without it, even the strongest and sharpest mind begins to quietly unravel. Dreams occur mostly in REM, but also in other stages. While the most vivid and memorable dreams tend to arise during REM sleep, the brain can produce imagery and narrative in other stages as well, though these dreams are often shorter, less vivid, less emotional, and harder to recall. During lighter stages of sleep, the mind may drift through fragments of thought, half-formed scenes, and faint and lingering echoes of the day just past, blending reality and fantasy in ways that very rarely survive until morning. It is still not entirely clear why we dream at all, though theories range from memory consolidation to emotional processing to the simple byproduct of random neural firing alone. What is certain is that dreams are a universal human experience, a nightly visit to a strange world made entirely of thought. Everyone dreams, every single night, even if they do not remember. Sleep moves memories from short-term to long-term storage. Throughout the day, your brain takes in vast amounts of information, storing it only temporarily in vulnerable regions like the hippocampus, where it remains remarkably fragile and easily forgotten, if not properly consolidated. During sleep, and particularly during deep slow-wave sleep, these unstable and fragile memories are replayed over and over again, transferred gradually into the more permanent and stable storage of the cerebral cortex, where they can last a lifetime. This essential process, called memory consolidation, explains why a good and restorative night's rest often helps you remember what you learned the day before, and why pulling an all-nighter before an important exam can backfire so dramatically. Sleep does not simply preserve memories, it strengthens and organizes them, weaving them into the fabric of who you are. Rest is the silent, tireless, and faithful architect of remembering. Dreaming may help the brain process emotions. Some researchers believe that one of the primary functions of dreaming is to help the brain work through the emotional residue of waking life, replaying difficult experiences in a safe and wholly symbolic inner space where they can be processed without any real-world consequences. Dreams often revisit the deep fears, anxieties, and unresolved conflicts that occupy our waking thoughts, reshaping them into narratives that may help us cope with stress, deep trauma, and loss. This does not always make dreams pleasant, but it may make them necessary, a kind of overnight therapy that gently and gradually allows the emotional centers of the brain to reset before morning arrives and a new day begins. You may not remember your dreams when morning finally comes, but they may still be quietly healing you. The mind gently tends to itself in the sheltering and forgiving dark. And from the sleeping brain, we turn to the waking mind and the mystery of memory. Your brain could store 3 million hours of video. Scientists estimate that the human brain has a truly staggering storage capacity of roughly 2.5 petabytes, a figure almost impossible to fully comprehend, but roughly equivalent to 3 million hours of television or enough video to play continuously for over 300 years. This capacity arises not from sheer size, but from the extraordinary efficiency of neural connections, each synapse capable of storing information in ways that no computer has yet managed to replicate. Of course, the brain does not store memories like files on a hard drive, but reconstructs them each time from scattered and imperfect fragments, a process that is creative as much as it is reliable and familiar. What you remember is always a little different from what happened, a story retold and revised rather than a recording faithfully replayed. Memory is, in the end, an act of quiet imagination. Recalling a memory subtly changes it every time. Every time you remember something, your brain does not simply retrieve a perfect recording, but actively reconstructs the memory from widely scattered pieces, filling in gaps and adjusting details in ways you rarely notice. This process of reconsolidation means that the act of remembering is also an act of rewriting, and the more often you recall something, the more it may drift from what actually happened. Memories are not photographs, but impressionist paintings, touched up and revised with each viewing, colored by your mood, your expectations, and the many stories you have told yourself since the original event took place. This is why eyewitness testimony can be so unreliable, and why two people can remember the same moment so differently. The past is never quite as fixed or as reliable as it so confidently seems to be. Memories are spread across multiple regions, not stored together. When you recall a single memory, you might imagine pulling a file from a drawer, but the brain works very differently than that neat and appealingly simple metaphor would suggest. The image of a face, the sound of a familiar voice, the feeling of warmth, and the emotion you felt are all stored in separate regions, and it is only when you try to remember that the brain quietly weaves these scattered fragments back together into something that feels whole and unified. A memory of a summer day might involve the visual cortex for the image, the auditory cortex for the sounds, the amygdala for the emotion, and countless other areas for context, meaning, and atmosphere. Each retrieval is a creative act of assembly. Remembering is less like reading a familiar page and more like dreaming gently and softly with quiet and tender intention. Strong emotions make memories more vivid and lasting. When something happens that triggers a powerful emotional response, the amygdala signals the hippocampus to pay close attention, and the memory is encoded with far greater intensity than ordinary events. This is why you might remember exactly where you were during a moment of shock or joy, while easily forgetting what you had for breakfast last Tuesday. Emotions act as a kind of highlighter, marking certain experiences as important enough to preserve in sharp detail for years or even a lifetime to come. This system evolved to help us remember threats and rewards, the crucial moments that mattered most for survival, but it also means that trauma can become etched into the mind in ways that are difficult to erase. What moves you deeply stays with you always. Feeling is the root of remembering, and remembering is forever shaped by feeling. Familiar scents trigger memories more powerfully than sight. Of all the senses, smell has the most direct pathway to the brain's memory and emotion centers, bypassing much of the processing that other senses must undergo before reaching consciousness. A whiff of perfume, a hint of wood smoke, or the faint smell of rain on dry earth can transport you instantly to a vivid moment decades past, bringing with it emotions you thought you had long since forgotten entirely. Scientists call this the Proustian effect, after the novelist who so famously described a sudden flood of memory triggered by the taste and smell of a Madeleine cake dipped in tea. The olfactory bulb sits just beneath the frontal lobe, close to the hippocampus and amygdala, and this proximity may well explain why scent is such a powerful key to the past. A single unexpected breath can quietly unlock entire forgotten and deeply buried years. Short-term memory holds only about 7 items at once. The capacity of your short-term or working memory is famously and frustratingly limited, able to hold roughly 7 pieces of information at any one time, give or take 2, depending on the complexity of the items and the individual. This is precisely why phone numbers were traditionally 7 digits long, and why cramming too many facts at once leads to confusion rather than genuine learning. The brain compensates for this limit by chunking information into larger units, grouping letters into words or digits into patterns, but the fundamental constraint remains, a bottleneck through which all conscious thought must pass. Beyond this narrow window, new information pushes old information out, unless it is transferred into long-term storage through repetition, emotion, or meaningful and lasting connection. The present moment is a very small room, and only so much can fit inside at once. The brain separates similar memories using pattern separation. One of the hippocampus's most important and remarkable tasks is distinguishing between memories that are similar but not identical, a crucial process neuroscientists call pattern separation. Without this essential ability, you might easily confuse where you parked your car today with where you parked it yesterday, or mix up similar conversations with different people held on different days. The brain achieves this by encoding each experience with a perfectly unique neural fingerprint, even when the experiences share many features in common, and this allows you to retrieve one without accidentally pulling up the other. As we age, this ability can gradually decline, which is why older adults sometimes struggle with overlapping memories. The world is full of repetition and familiar patterns, and it is the brain's difficult and essential daily job to tell one repetition from another. And from the rooms where memories are kept, we wander now into the realm of learning and change. Your brain can rewire itself throughout your entire life. For most of the 20th century, scientists believed the adult brain was essentially fixed, unable to form new connections or meaningfully change its structure once development was complete. We now know this is far from the truth. the brain retains a remarkable ability to rewire itself, a phenomenon called neuroplasticity, allowing it to adapt to injury, learn new skills, and gradually reshape itself in response to experience at virtually any age. When you learn a new language, pick up an instrument, or recover from a stroke, it is plasticity at work, neurons forming new connections, pruning old ones, and carefully reorganizing to meet new demands. The brain you have today is not the one you were born with. It has been continuously and profoundly shaped and reshaped by everything you have ever done, felt, thought, and quietly imagined. Learning a new skill grows new neural connections. Every time you learn something new, whether it is a musical scale, a dance step, or a software shortcut, your brain physically changes to accommodate and carefully preserve the new knowledge you have acquired. Neurons that fire together begin to wire together, strengthening the synapses between them until the skill becomes second nature and requires absolutely no deliberate thought. This is why practice matters, not because repetition is boring, but because each repetition carves the pathway a little deeper and wider, making the very next attempt easier and smoother than the last. Over time, entire networks of neurons reorganize themselves around the skill, and what once required conscious effort becomes entirely and effortlessly automatic. Learning is not just acquiring information, it is reshaping the architecture of your mind. Every new ability you carefully cultivate leaves a lasting and permanently visible physical trace deep in your brain. London taxi drivers have larger memory centers. A famous study of London taxi drivers found that those who had spent years memorizing the city's labyrinthine streets had measurably larger hippocampi than control subjects who had not undergone this intensive training. The longer they had been driving and navigating, the more pronounced the structural difference, suggesting that the act of navigating complex spatial information had physically expanded the region of the brain responsible for memory and spatial awareness. This remarkable discovery was among the very first to demonstrate that the adult human brain can grow in response to mental exercise, just as muscles grow in response to physical effort. It is a vivid and powerful reminder that what you do with your mind leaves a lasting mark. The winding, complex streets of an ancient and sprawling city became permanently etched into the very folds of the brain. Musicians develop thicker gray matter from regular practice. Brain scans of professional musicians consistently reveal differences compared to non-musicians, including thicker gray matter in regions responsible for motor control, auditory processing, and spatial reasoning. These striking structural changes are not present at birth, but emerge gradually over time as a result of sustained, intensive practice. And the earlier and more consistently someone trains, the more clearly pronounced the changes tend to be. Playing an instrument requires coordination between hearing, movement, and reading music, engaging multiple brain systems at once and measurably strengthening and deepening the connections between them in ways that have been shown to transfer to other cognitive abilities. Music is a deep and thorough exercise for the brain, and every single hour of practice leaves its lasting mark. Every scale played and every melody memorized is a small but meaningful act of construction. The instrument invisibly but powerfully shapes the player. Regular reading strengthens and reshapes your brain. Reading is one of the most powerful and accessible ways to exercise your brain, engaging regions responsible for language, memory, vivid imagination, and even the detailed simulation of physical experience. When you read about a character walking through a forest, the motor cortex lights up as if you were walking yourself. And when you encounter a vivid description of a scent, the olfactory regions stir into action. Over time, regular and consistent reading has been shown to strengthen neural pathways, improve vocabulary and comprehension, and even measurably increase white matter connectivity between different areas of the brain. It is a form of mental travel, allowing you to inhabit other minds and other worlds without leaving your bed. Each book you read and quietly finish leaves a subtle but deeply lasting and personal imprint on the inner architecture of your thought. Bilingual people have denser language processing regions. Speaking two or more languages requires the brain to constantly and rapidly switch between systems, suppressing one set of vocabulary while activating another. And this ongoing juggling act appears to measurably strengthen the neural infrastructure involved. Brain scans of bilinguals show denser gray matter in areas associated with language, executive function, and attention. And some studies suggest that this ongoing mental workout may even delay the onset of cognitive decline in old age. The bilingual brain is not simply storing two sets of words, but managing two complete worldviews, each with its own grammar, idioms, and cultural associations. It is said that to have a second language is to have a second soul, and there may be genuine neurological truth in this beautiful old proverb. The brain seems to quietly and visibly bear the lasting imprint of this remarkable doubling. And from the changing brain, we now explore the world of emotions and how they color everything we experience. The brain processes emotions before you become aware. Long before a feeling rises into conscious awareness, the brain has already detected the relevant cues and begun preparing your body to respond accordingly. The amygdala can register a threatening face in a fraction of a second, triggering a rapid cascade of physiological changes, increased heart rate, heightened alertness, tensed muscles, all before you have even recognized what you are looking at. This speed is essential for survival, allowing you to jump back from a shadow before you know it is a snake, but it also means that emotions often arrive fully formed, as if from nowhere at all, leaving conscious thought to catch up and make sense of what the body already knows. The feeling is faster than the reason behind it. You feel first and think second. The body is always faster than the conscious mind. Laughter releases endorphins, the brain's natural painkillers. When you laugh, truly laugh, the brain releases a powerful flood of endorphins, natural chemicals that dull pain, gently elevate mood, and create a deep, warm sense of well-being that can linger long after the joke has passed. This is why humor is so often used as a coping mechanism, why laughter can ease tension in difficult situations, and why comedians speak of laughter as a kind of medicine that costs nothing at all and works better than most. The physical act of laughing involves rapid contractions of the diaphragm, brief bursts of exhalation, and the coordination of dozens of facial muscles, all of which send signals back to the brain that reinforce the positive feedback loop. In a very real sense, your face teaches your brain to feel better. Laughter is not just an expression of joy, but a genuine and powerful cause of it. Falling in love activates the same circuits as addiction. Brain scans of people in the early stages of romantic love reveal striking similarities to scans of those experiencing addiction, with elevated activity in the brain's reward centers, surges of dopamine, and a craving for the beloved that mirrors the craving for a drug. This does not mean that love is pathological, but it does explain why new romance can feel so consuming, why separation causes such distress, and why the early months of a relationship can feel like a kind of intoxication that makes everything else seem dim by comparison. Over time, the intensity fades, replaced by calmer forms of attachment mediated by different chemicals like oxytocin and vasopressin, binding two lives together more quietly but no less strongly. Love transforms the brain beautifully and profoundly, and differently in every season and stage of life. Loneliness affects the brain like physical pain. When researchers scan the brains of people experiencing social rejection or profound loneliness, they find significant activation in many of the same regions that light up during genuine physical pain. suggesting that the deep ache of isolation is not merely metaphorical or imagined, but grounded in the same neural circuitry that processes bodily harm. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, since for most of human history being cast out from the group meant almost certain death. And so, the brain evolved to treat social exclusion as a very serious threat to your very survival. Chronic loneliness has been linked to increased inflammation, weakened immune function, and significantly higher rates of depression and cognitive decline. We are deeply wired for connection. The prolonged and painful absence of others leaves a wound the body simply cannot ignore. Dopamine is released from anticipation, not just reward. For a long time, dopamine was called the pleasure chemical, but more recent research suggests it is far more accurately described as the anticipation chemical, spiking not when you actually receive a reward, but rather when you expect one is on its way. This is why the excitement before a holiday can feel more intense than the holiday itself, and why gambling and scrolling through social media feeds can be so compulsive even when the actual payoff is small and unpredictable. The brain is wired to chase possibility, to light up at the prospect of something good, and it is this wanting rather than the having that drives so much of human behavior. The future is where dopamine lives and thrives. The present moment often arrives too late to matter to the restless, wanting brain. Fear sharpens your senses through adrenaline and cortisol. When you perceive a threat, the amygdala triggers the release of adrenaline and cortisol, powerful hormones that immediately prepare your entire body to fight or flee by increasing heart rate, dilating your pupils, and redirecting blood flow to the muscles that might save your life in that critical moment. At the same time, your senses become sharper, your attention narrows to the source of danger, and time itself can seem to slow as the brain processes more vivid information per second than usual. This is why moments of crisis are often remembered with unusual clarity, each vivid and sharp detail etched into memory by the powerful surge of stress hormones flooding the entire system. The entire body becomes a finely tuned alarm, ready for immediate action. Fear is utterly and completely exhausting because it demands absolutely every last thing you have. Gratitude practice physically changes your brain structure. Studies have shown that regularly practicing gratitude, whether through journaling, meditation, or simply pausing to notice what is genuinely good in your life, can lead to measurable, lasting, and well-documented changes in brain structure and function over time. The prefrontal cortex becomes more active, the amygdala less reactive, and the neural pathways associated with positive emotion grow noticeably stronger and more easily triggered with each passing week. This is not merely about thinking happy thoughts, but about training the brain to notice and savor the good in life, rewiring the default neural patterns that so often skew toward worry and persistent negativity. Gratitude is a skill that can be cultivated and strengthened, and like any skill, it leaves its mark on the organ that practices it. What you consistently and deliberately focus on, you slowly and inevitably become. The brain processes emotions even while you sleep. Sleep is not a pause in your emotional life, but a continuation of it by other mysterious means throughout the night. During REM sleep, the brain silently replays emotionally significant events from the preceding day, processing them in a chemically altered state where stress hormones are suppressed and the emotional centers can work through difficult material without the full physiological response of waking fear or anger. This may be why dreams so often feature the worries, conflicts, and unresolved feelings of our waking lives, presenting them in strange and symbolic form for the sleeping mind to examine. Some researchers now believe this essential overnight processing helps us regulate emotion and build lasting resilience. Rest is not an escape from feeling. It is the hidden and sheltered place where feeling does its quiet, necessary, and restorative work. Let these emotions drift past like clouds. You do not need to hold any of them. Simply rest and let your breath carry you deeper into stillness. Music activates more brain regions than almost anything else. Listening to music engages nearly every area of the brain simultaneously, from the auditory cortex that carefully processes sound and tone and rhythm to the motor cortex that unconsciously keeps time to the limbic system that generates powerful emotion. This extraordinary widespread activation may explain why music has such a profound effect on mood, memory, and even physical movement, triggering tears, laughter, or the irresistible urge to dance depending on the particular song and the moment you hear it. Musicians show even greater activation, as playing an instrument requires the coordination of fine motor skills, reading notation, listening for feedback, and expressing emotion all at once. In a very real and measurable sense, music is a thorough workout for the entire brain. No other single everyday activity lights up so many different regions in such remarkable harmony. Dopamine releases before the best part of a song. When you listen to a piece of music you love, dopamine levels in the brain begin to rise noticeably and measurably, not at the precise moment the best part arrives, but in the seconds just before, as your brain anticipates the coming pleasure with eager and delightful expectation. This is why the build-up in a favorite song can feel almost unbearably exciting, why we crave the return of a beloved melody, and why familiar music so often feels more rewarding than something entirely new and unfamiliar. The brain is not simply reacting to sound, but predicting and preparing for it, savoring the sweet anticipation as much as the payoff itself, sometimes even more. Music exploits the brain's ancient and deeply embedded reward system with astonishing and delicate precision. It is pleasure carefully and beautifully engineered in the dimension of time. Your brain perceives rhythm even when no sound plays. If you hear a steady beat and then it suddenly stops, your brain continues to perceive the rhythm internally, automatically and instinctively anticipating where the next beat should fall, even in the complete and unexpected silence that follows afterward. This remarkable ability to track and predict rhythm is very deeply wired into the brain, likely evolved to help us coordinate movement, synchronize with others, and reliably predict patterns in the natural world around us throughout our evolutionary history. It is why you can tap along to a song without conscious effort, and why a sudden break in the pattern can feel almost physically jarring. Rhythm is not just heard, but deeply felt, a pulse that runs through the body and mind alike. The beat goes on endlessly inside your mind, even when the music fades gently and completely to nothing. Singing uses both hemispheres in ways speech does not. While ordinary speech is largely controlled by the left hemisphere of the brain, singing engages both sides, drawing on the right hemisphere's particular strengths in melody, pitch, and emotional expression. This is why people with damage to the left hemisphere who have lost the ability to speak can sometimes still sing, and why music therapy is used to help stroke patients gradually recover language skills they thought were gone forever and beyond reach. Singing combines the precision of language with the emotional power of music, weaving words into a form that the brain finds both easier to remember and more moving to experience. It is one of the oldest human activities and one of the most deeply integrated into our neural architecture. To sing is to use the whole remarkable brain at once, and every voice carries that power. And from the music that moves through us, we turn to the senses that bring the world into the brain. Color exists only inside your brain, not outside. What we call color is not a property of the external world itself, but a construction of the brain, an interpretation of the particular wavelengths of light that happen to strike the sensitive cells in our eyes at any given moment. There are no colors in the universe, only electromagnetic radiation of varying frequencies, and it is the brain that translates these frequencies into the vivid palette of reds, blues, greens, and yellows that paint our everyday experience of the world. Different species perceive entirely different ranges of color, some seeing ultraviolet, others seeing only shades of gray, and yet each believes it is seeing the world as it truly is. The sunset you admire is a masterpiece quietly created inside your skull. Reality is silently and beautifully colored in by the mind. Your eyes send 10 million bits to the brain each second. The retina, the thin layer of tissue lining the back of each eye, contains over 100 million photoreceptors that convert light into electrical signals, and these signals are compressed and rapidly transmitted to the brain along the optic nerve at a rate of roughly 10 million bits per second. This is far more data than many internet connections can comfortably handle, and yet your brain processes it all in real time, extracting shapes, colors, motion, and meaning from the flood of raw information. Most of this remarkable processing happens below the level of consciousness, leaving you with what feels like an entirely effortless picture of the world. Seeing is not passive, but profoundly active and endlessly creative. The brain is always and tirelessly constructing, building, and carefully refining everything you behold. The brain processes an image in 13 milliseconds. Experiments have shown that the brain can identify an image and begin categorizing its contents in as little as 13 milliseconds, far faster than was once believed remotely possible by even the most optimistic researchers. This blistering speed allows us to navigate the world safely in real time, recognizing faces, objects, and hazards almost instantaneously as we move through our environment each day. Most of this processing occurs automatically, without any conscious effort, which is why you can glance at a crowded scene and immediately notice a familiar face or a sudden movement. The brain is not waiting to be told what to see, but is constantly anticipating and interpreting, building the visual world around you before you even have time to ask. Perception is prediction quietly and ceaselessly operating at the very speed of thought itself. Touch is processed differently depending on body location. The sensitivity of your skin varies dramatically across the body, with certain remarkably sensitive areas, such as the fingertips, lips, and tongue, sending vastly more detailed sensory information to the brain than others, such as the back or the calf. This variation is reflected in the somatosensory cortex, where each body part is represented according to its sensitivity rather than its physical size, producing a distorted map known as the sensory homunculus, in which the hands and face loom enormous while the trunk shrinks to almost nothing. A single gentle touch on your fingertip produces a burst of activity, while the same pressure on your back might go almost unnoticed. The body you feel is not the body you see reflected in the mirror. It is shaped entirely by attention, sensitivity, and the quiet neural priority of the brain. Optical illusions work because the brain takes shortcuts. The brain cannot analyze every detail of every scene from scratch, so it relies on shortcuts, assumptions, and a lifetime of accumulated prior experience to fill in the gaps and speed up the demanding process of perception. Most of the time, these shortcuts work perfectly well in everyday life, but when the visual input contradicts the brain's deeply held expectations, the result is an optical illusion, a mismatch between what is actually there and what the brain stubbornly insists you are seeing. Lines appear bent when they are perfectly straight, colors shift noticeably depending on their surroundings, and entirely static images can seem to move. These illusions are not failures of vision, but windows into the hidden processes that construct your everyday experience. Seeing is believing, except when the overconfident brain quietly and stubbornly believes wrongly. Taste combines flavor, smell, texture, and memory. What you experience as taste is not simply what happens on your tongue, but a deeply complex and layered fusion of flavor, aroma, texture, temperature, and even personal memory, all woven together by the brain into a single seamless sensation. The tongue itself can only detect a handful of basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, while the rest of what we call flavor comes from the olfactory system as aromas drift up behind the palate and into the nose. This is why food tastes flat and lifeless when you have a cold, and why the same familiar dish can taste completely different depending on the context and particular circumstances in which you eat it. Eating is a conversation between the senses and the past. Every single bite you take is quietly and indelibly shaped by memory. Sensory signals arrive faster from some body parts. Not all parts of your body are equally close to the brain in physical distance, and the length of the delicate nerves connecting them affects how quickly signals arrive in the cortex. A gentle touch on your nose reaches the brain faster than an identical touch on your toe, simply because the physical distance is shorter, and yet your perception of being touched happens as a unified experience, as if all parts of the body were reporting at the same time. The brain achieves this synchronization by delaying the signals from closer regions, waiting until the slower ones catch up before weaving them together into a coherent moment. You live, without knowing it, in a slightly edited version of the present. The brain smooths over these tiny but significant gaps so seamlessly that you never once notice the seams. And from the senses, we travel inward to the brain's hidden sense of time and space. Specialized place cells create mental maps of your surroundings. In the hippocampus and surrounding regions, certain specialized neurons known as place cells fire only when you are in a specific location, creating an internal map of the space around you that silently guides your every move through the world. As you move through a room, different place cells activate in sequence, allowing you to track your position without any conscious effort or deliberate thought. These internal maps are remarkably flexible, constantly updating themselves as you explore new and unfamiliar environments, and linking together into larger networks that represent entire buildings, cities, or landscapes in your memory. When you imagine walking through a familiar place, it is these place cells that light up, replaying the route in the theater of your mind. You carry an entire and constantly updating map of the world inside your head. Your perception of time changes with your emotions. Time is not the steady, perfectly objective flow we imagine it to be, at least not as experienced by the human brain in its daily functioning. In moments of fear, excitement, or particularly intense and narrow focus, time seems to slow dramatically, each second stretching as the brain processes significantly more information than usual. In moments of boredom or routine, time speeds up, the hours slipping by entirely unnoticed, because there is nothing new or novel to mark their passing. This variability is not a flaw, but a deeply useful feature, allowing the brain to prioritize attention where it is needed most and to conserve effort when nothing remarkable is happening. The clock ticks at the same rate, second after second. It is your mind alone that quietly decides how fast or slow you feel it moving. The brain constantly predicts what will happen next. Rather than waiting passively for sensory information to arrive from the outside world, the brain is constantly generating predictions about what it expects to perceive, comparing these predictions to incoming data and updating its model of the world accordingly. This predictive processing allows you to respond faster, to anticipate the trajectory of a ball, the next word in a sentence, or the movement of a car on the road before it actually happens. When predictions match reality, you barely notice, but when they are violated, you feel surprise, confusion, or even fear. This is exactly why magic tricks work so reliably, because the magician understands what your brain expects and deliberately subverts it. The brain is not a passive receiver, but an active hypothesis generator. You do not see the world so much as quietly and constantly guess it into being. You never perceive the present, only a delayed reconstruction. By the time you become conscious of any event, it has already happened, because the brain takes a measurable amount of time to carefully collect, filter, and integrate all of the sensory information before presenting it to awareness. This delay is typically around half a second or more, meaning that the present moment you experience is actually a slightly polished version of the very recent past. The brain stitches together inputs from different senses, corrects for transmission times, and fills in gaps with best guesses, all before you have any idea anything has occurred. Every sight, sound, and sensation you perceive is already quiet history by the time it reaches your conscious mind. What feels immediate is actually a carefully and seamlessly constructed illusion. You live, always and forever, in a world that has already happened. Time speeds up as you age because novelty decreases. When you are young, nearly everything is new, and the brain encodes experience in rich detail, creating dense and wonderfully vivid memories that stretch the perception of time. As you age, the world becomes ever more familiar, fewer experiences truly stand out, and the brain processes routine days with far less attention and detail, making entire years seem to pass in the blink of an eye. This is why childhood summers felt endless, while adult months vanish almost unnoticed, slipping by without leaving any memorable mark. The antidote is novelty, new places, new skills, new experiences that force the brain to pay attention and encode the moment with the same richness it once reserved for everything. Time slows when you live deliberately. Comfortable, familiar, and unchallenging routine quietly and relentlessly accelerates the clock. And from the passage of time, we move now to the development of the brain across a lifetime. The brain is nearly full-grown by age 6. By the time a child reaches 6 years old, the brain has already achieved roughly 90% of its adult size, though it will continue to develop and reorganize for another 2 full decades. The early years are a period of explosive growth, with neurons forming connections at a staggering and breathtaking rate and entire systems coming online that will shape perception, language, and emotion for the rest of life. This is why early childhood experiences have such a profound and lasting effect on who we become, because the brain is most plastic, most open and impressionable in these first few years when it absorbs everything around it. The foundation is being poured while the child plays with blocks and learns to speak. The fundamental architecture is laid remarkably and irreversibly early. What comes later is merely remodeling. A newborn's brain triples in size within 1 year. At birth, the human brain weighs roughly 350 grams, and by the end of the first year, it will have nearly tripled in mass, reaching close to 1 kilogram as neurons multiply at an astonishing rate, synapses form, and the basic wiring for sensation, movement, and early cognition comes online. This extraordinary growth is fueled by a constant and overwhelming flood of new experiences, the first sights, sounds, touches, and faces that will shape the brain for the rest of its life in profound and lasting ways. Every cooing word, every gentle touch, every moment of loving attention contributes to the architecture being built in that tiny skull. The infant is constructing a mind from the raw material of the world around it. The first year of life is truly an entire universe of firsts. Childhood experiences permanently shape the brain's architecture. The experiences of early childhood leave deep and lasting marks on the structure and function of the developing brain, influencing everything from emotional regulation to cognitive ability, to the very strength of the stress response throughout an entire life. Loving, stable, and nurturing environments tend to build brains that are resilient and well-regulated, while neglect or early trauma can wire in deep patterns of anxiety, hypervigilance, and difficulty trusting others throughout life. These early imprints are not necessarily destiny, for the brain retains plasticity throughout life, but they do set the baseline from which all later development proceeds. The patterns formed in the first few years often prove surprisingly and stubbornly persistent, even decades later. The child's world quietly and inevitably becomes the adult's default. What is learned earliest and most deeply is often what is hardest to unlearn. The teenage brain prunes unused connections heavily. During adolescence, the brain undergoes a massive and essential process of synaptic pruning, eliminating connections that are not being regularly and actively used to make the remaining networks faster, more efficient, and far more specialized for the demands of adult life. This use it or lose it principle means that the skills and habits practiced during the teenage years tend to become more deeply wired, while those neglected may fade away entirely. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for impulse control and long-term planning, is among the last regions to mature, which helps explain why teenagers can be both brilliantly capable and at times staggeringly reckless. It is a time of both profound potential and genuine, lasting vulnerability. The adolescent brain is a vast and busy construction site. It is slowly and deliberately building the adult mind, one carefully discarded synapse at a time. The decision-making cortex is the last to fully develop. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, impulse control, and weighing the long-term consequences of decisions, does not fully mature until the mid-20s at the earliest, making it the final frontier of brain development in all humans. This extended timeline explains much about typical adolescent behavior: the thrill-seeking, the poor risk assessment, the difficulty imagining distant futures, because the region needed for that kind of careful and deliberate thinking is still under construction. It is not that teenagers lack intelligence. It is that the part of the brain designed to supervise and regulate is simply not yet finished building. Maturity is, in part, a literal growth process that simply cannot be rushed. The person you eventually become in your 20s is partly the result of finally having a complete and fully functioning prefrontal cortex. Older brains can still grow new neurons. For decades, scientists believed that adults could not produce new brain cells, that the neurons you were born with were all you would ever have for the entire duration of your natural life. Recent research has dramatically challenged this view, revealing that new neurons continue to form in certain important regions of the adult brain, particularly the hippocampus, which is critical for learning and memory. This process, called neurogenesis, can be encouraged through regular physical exercise, mental stimulation, and a healthy lifestyle, suggesting that the brain remains far more remarkably adaptable than previously thought, even remarkably late in life. The old familiar adage that you cannot teach an old dog new tricks turns out to be entirely mistaken. The aging brain can still grow fresh and vital new cells even in remarkably late old age. Physical exercise supports brain health at any age. Moving your body does far more than strengthen muscles. It also benefits the brain in profound and lasting ways that scientists are only now beginning to fully understand. Exercise increases blood flow, delivering oxygen and nutrients that neurons require, and stimulates the release of chemicals that promote the growth and survival of brain cells. Regular physical activity has been linked to improved memory, sharper cognitive function, reduced risk of dementia, and better mood regulation throughout life. The effects appear at any age, from childhood through old age, suggesting the brain never stops responding to movement. Even moderate and gentle exercise, a simple daily walk or quiet movement, can make a measurable and lasting difference over weeks and months. The brain is not separate from the body. What serves your muscles also serves your mind, and the benefits compound over time. The brain shrinks slowly after 40, but lifestyle helps. Beginning around the age of 40, the human brain starts a gradual process of shrinkage, losing a small percentage of its volume each passing decade as neurons die and connections weaken. This decline is a perfectly normal part of aging and does not inevitably mean cognitive impairment, especially if offset by protective factors that are largely within your control. A healthy and active lifestyle, including regular exercise, a balanced diet, mental stimulation, and good social connections, can significantly slow this loss and preserve cognitive function well into old age. The rate of shrinkage varies dramatically between individuals, influenced by genetics, but also strongly by choices made day after day. The brain may shrink, but how fast and how much depends largely on how you treat it. Aging is unavoidable. The rate of decline is not. Daily choices matter. Social connection protects the brain from cognitive decline. Human brains evolved to be social, and maintaining meaningful and regular relationships has measurable effects on cognitive health. Studies consistently show that people with strong social networks have a lower risk of dementia, better memory, and slower cognitive decline as they age. Conversation, emotional support, and the mental stimulation of navigating social situations all seem to provide protective benefits that solitary activities cannot fully replicate. Even brief daily interactions, a chat with a neighbor or a simple phone call with a friend, appear to exercise the brain in ways that help maintain its function over the long term. Loneliness, by contrast, is associated with accelerated brain aging and increased risk of cognitive impairment. The brain truly thrives when it remains connected to other minds. Isolation is not merely loneliness or simple sadness. It is a genuine and serious risk factor. Let these facts about time and growing drift gently away. Your brain is resting now, and that is exactly as it should be. There is nothing to do, nothing to fix. Meditation physically changes the brain in weeks. Meditation is not merely a mental exercise. It produces measurable, real physical changes in the structure of the brain within just a few weeks of regular daily practice. Brain scans of meditators show increased gray matter in areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness, alongside reduced activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center that drives anxiety and stress responses. These changes do not require years of monastic dedication. Even short and simple daily sessions of mindfulness practice can begin to meaningfully reshape the neural landscape in surprising ways. The longer and more consistently you practice, the more pronounced the structural changes become. The brain is plastic, and where you direct your attention leaves lasting marks. Meditation is genuine and effective exercise for the mind. The results show up clearly and consistently in the physical structure. Stress shrinks some brain regions while enlarging others. Chronic stress has a sculptural and lasting effect on the brain, literally reshaping it over time in ways that can be deeply harmful. The hippocampus, crucial for memory and learning, tends to visibly shrink under sustained stress, while the amygdala, the fear center, grows larger and more reactive, always on alert for danger. This combination creates a brain that is worse at calm, reflective thinking and better at detecting threats, a useful adaptation for immediate physical danger, but deeply and lastingly damaging when sustained over many months or years. The good news is that these changes can often be reversed once the stressor is removed and healthier habits are established. The architecture of your brain faithfully reflects the environment you have lived in. Chronic stress does not just feel bad. It carves its damaging effects directly into the structure. Chronic anxiety keeps the fear center hyperactive. In people who experience chronic anxiety, the amygdala, the part of the brain that detects threats and triggers fear responses, remains in a persistent state of heightened vigilance, firing more readily and more intensely than in calmer and more regulated minds. This hyperactivity means that even perfectly neutral situations can feel dangerous, triggering worry, tension, and deeply uncomfortable physical symptoms out of all proportion to any real risk. The anxious brain is not imagining danger. It is perceiving the world through a filter that emphasizes threat at every turn. Over time, this constant activation can reinforce the pattern, making the brain even more sensitive to perceived and imagined threats. Professional treatment can often help retrain these anxious circuits, but it takes time, patience, and long and consistent daily practice. Chronic anxiety gradually rewires perception entirely. The world gradually grows more frightening. Deep breathing calms the brain almost instantly. The simple act of taking slow, deep breaths can shift the brain from a state of heightened stress to one of genuine calm within just a few moments. This works because the breath is one of the very few bodily functions that operates both automatically and also under voluntary control, allowing you to consciously influence the autonomic nervous system. Deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering heart rate, reducing cortisol, and signaling to the brain that the threat has passed and safety has returned. Studies show that just a few minutes of slow, rhythmic breathing can measurably reduce anxiety and improve focus. It is a remarkably effective reset button, available at any time, requiring no tools or training whatsoever. The breath is a lever built into your body. Pull it gently, and the mind naturally follows. Sunlight triggers serotonin, which is why darkness affects mood. Exposure to natural sunlight stimulates the production of serotonin, a neurotransmitter closely linked to mood regulation, general well-being, and deeper feelings of calm. When daylight is scarce, as during winter months or for people who spend most of their time indoors, serotonin levels drop, contributing to low mood, persistent fatigue, and in some cases, seasonal affective disorder. At night, serotonin converts into melatonin, helping regulate sleep, so the daytime light exposure that boosts serotonin also supports healthy rest when darkness falls. This is precisely why morning sunlight is particularly powerful, setting the tone for both mood and sleep throughout the day. The brain is deeply and fundamentally tied to the rhythms of light and dark. Sunshine is not merely pleasant or decorative. It is, quite literally, medicine for the living brain. And from the calming brain, we shift to the darker corners, the illnesses and injuries that can reshape the mind. A stroke can kill brain cells within minutes. When blood flow to a region of the brain is suddenly blocked, as happens during a stroke, the affected neurons begin to die within mere minutes due to sudden and catastrophic oxygen starvation. The damage spreads outward from the core of the blocked area, and the longer the interruption lasts, the more precious and irreplaceable brain tissue is lost. This is why strokes are medical emergencies where time is critical, because swift treatment can mean the difference between full recovery and permanent disability. Recognizing the early signs of stroke, facial drooping, arm weakness, slurred speech, can save lives and preserve vulnerable minds. The brain's reliance on constant blood flow is both its strength and its vulnerability, allowing sustained activity but leaving absolutely no margin for interruption. Every single second counts in these critical moments. The clock never pauses. Alzheimer's slowly erases memories by destroying connections. Alzheimer's disease is characterized by the gradual accumulation of abnormal proteins in the brain, which interfere with communication between neurons and eventually destroy the irreplaceable synaptic connections that store memory and personal history. As the disease progresses slowly over many years, more and more connections are lost, beginning typically in the hippocampus and spreading outward, erasing recent memories first and older ones later in a relentless and cruel progression. The person living with Alzheimer's is not choosing to forget. The physical substrate of memory is being slowly dismantled piece by piece. Faces that were once beloved and deeply cherished become slowly and painfully unfamiliar, and names that should come easily vanish into silence. It is a slow theft of identity conducted at the level of cells. What was once certain slowly becomes uncertain, then lost entirely and forever. Depression involves measurable changes in brain structure. Depression is not simply a mood or a passing mindset. It involves real, measurable, and well-documented physical changes in the structure and function of the brain itself. Imaging studies have revealed that people living with depression often show reduced volume in the hippocampus, altered activity in the prefrontal cortex, and significant imbalances in neurotransmitter systems that regulate mood and emotion. These physical changes help explain why depression feels so heavy and so difficult to simply will away, because the very organ responsible for willing and deciding and hoping is itself deeply compromised and weakened by the illness. Treatment, whether through therapy, medication, or lifestyle changes, can reverse many of these damaging changes over time, which offers genuine and lasting hope for recovery. Depression is not weakness or a failure of character. It is a real injury to the brain. Traumatic brain injuries can alter personality unpredictably. A sudden blow to the head can damage the delicate circuitry of the brain in ways that change not just memory or movement, but the very core of who someone is as a person and how they relate to the world. Personality changes after traumatic brain injury can include increased irritability, impulsiveness, emotional flatness, or radical shifts in interests and values that persist for many years. The person who emerges after the injury may seem like a complete and unfamiliar stranger to those who knew them before, even though they look exactly the same. Family members often describe it as living with someone they no longer truly recognize. The brain is the seat of the self, and when it is damaged, the self can be altered. Injury does not discriminate or warn. It rewrites character without consent or mercy. Epilepsy is caused by abnormal electrical activity. In epilepsy, the normal orderly firing of neurons is disrupted by sudden bursts of abnormal electrical activity that spread through vulnerable parts of the brain like an uncontrolled electrical wave. The seizures can manifest in many profoundly different ways, from brief moments of absence to full convulsions, depending on where in the brain they originate and how far they spread across neural tissue. The disorder is not one thing but many, with different causes, triggers, and available treatments depending on the individual brain involved. Some people experience seizures rarely, while others struggle with them daily, and the impact on quality of life varies enormously. For most people with epilepsy, medication can significantly reduce or eliminate seizures. The storm in the brain can be calmed with proper and sustained medical treatment. Management is possible and real. Parkinson's results from the loss of dopamine neurons. Parkinson's disease develops when the neurons in a region called the substantia nigra, responsible for producing the neurotransmitter dopamine, begin to die for reasons that are not yet fully understood by researchers. Dopamine is essential for smooth, coordinated movement, and as dopamine levels gradually fall, the characteristic symptoms emerge: tremors, stiffness, slowness, and difficulty initiating movement that was once effortless and automatic. The loss progresses slowly, and by the time noticeable symptoms appear, a significant portion of these neurons has already been lost. Simple tasks that once required no conscious thought, like buttoning a shirt or signing your name, become increasingly difficult. Current treatments can manage symptoms, but cannot yet halt the underlying degeneration. The disease reveals how delicate the chemistry of movement is. One single missing chemical ingredient, and motion itself becomes exhausting labor. And from the fragile brain, we now explore the strange phenomena that reveal just how mysterious the mind can be. Some people see colors when they hear music. For people with a condition called synesthesia, the senses are blended in unusual and often beautiful ways, so that hearing a single piece of music might produce vivid and striking colors in the mind, or reading a single word might evoke a distinct taste on the tongue. These experiences are not metaphors. They are genuine sensory perceptions, consistent and automatic, caused by unusual and persistent cross-wiring between regions of the brain that normally handle different senses separately. Different synesthetes see quite different colors for the same sounds, but each person's associations remain remarkably stable throughout their life. The world synesthetes experience is richer and stranger than for most people, a reminder that perception is always constructed by the brain, not simply received. What seems like solid reality is just one possible version. Other brains quietly live in entirely other, richer worlds. The brain can feel a limb that no longer exists. After the amputation of a limb, many people continue to experience vivid and sometimes deeply distressing sensations from the missing body part, including pain, itching, pressure, or the vivid feeling that the limb is still moving as if nothing had changed. These phantom sensations occur because the brain's internal map of the body has not updated to reflect the physical loss, and the neural circuits that once faithfully represented the limb continue to fire as though it was still there. The experience is entirely real to the person, perfectly convincing, even though the limb itself is not there. It reveals that what we feel as our body is not the body itself, but the brain's model of it. Feeling is always a carefully constructed interpretation. The map persists long after the territory is gone. The brain creates false memories that feel completely real. Memory is not a faithful recording, it is a reconstruction, and every time you remember something, the brain painstakingly reassembles the event from scattered fragments, filling in gaps with plausible details that may not be entirely or even remotely accurate to what actually occurred. This process can produce false memories, recollections of events that never happened, or memories distorted so significantly that they no longer reflect reality. The person experiencing a false memory has no way of distinguishing it from a true one, because both feel equally real and equally vivid. Researchers have even implanted false memories in laboratory settings, showing just how remarkably susceptible the mind is to suggestion. The confidence we place in our own memory is often deeply misplaced. What seems absolutely certain may be a fiction the brain has quietly and patiently polished into apparent fact. Some stroke survivors cannot recognize familiar faces. A stroke affecting specific regions of the brain can leave a person unable to recognize even the most familiar faces, including those of close family members they have known for years. A devastating and bewildering condition called prosopagnosia, commonly known as face blindness. The eyes work perfectly well, and the person can see every individual feature, but the brain simply cannot assemble those features into a recognizable identity. Loved ones must be identified by voice, gait, or context rather than by appearance. Imagine looking at your own child and seeing only a stranger's face, the features present but the identity absent. The condition reveals that face recognition is a specialized function handled by dedicated neural circuits, and when those circuits fail, the face becomes a meaningless and empty pattern. Recognition is not the same as seeing. It is a separate and deeply hidden computation. Split-brain patients can experience two separate consciousnesses. In rare cases, where the corpus callosum, the thick band of fibers connecting the brain's two hemispheres, has been surgically severed to treat particularly severe epilepsy, patients can display deeply and disturbingly strange behaviors, suggesting two entirely independent streams of separate conscious awareness. One hand might reach for an object while the other actively resists. Or the patient may not recognize images shown only to one hemisphere while the other side knows them perfectly well. These strange and revealing dissociations reveal how much of what we call a unified self depends on constant communication between brain regions. The surgery effectively creates two separate observers sharing one body. When that communication is cut, what emerges is not one mind, but something closer to two. Unity of mind is maintained by connection alone. Severed, it fractures quietly into pieces. Déjà vu may be a misfiring in memory processing. The strange sensation of having already lived through a moment, even when you know you have not, may arise from a brief and still unexplained malfunction in the brain's complex memory systems, where a current experience is mistakenly flagged as a memory before it has actually been stored. This misfiring creates the unsettling feeling that the present is somehow a replay of the past. Another theory suggests that small delays in neural processing cause one part of the brain to register the experience a fraction of a second before another, creating the powerful illusion of familiarity. Nearly everyone has experienced this phenomenon at least once, that deeply eerie and unsettling feeling that the present moment has somehow happened before. Either way, déjà vu is not supernatural or prophetic. It is simply a harmless glitch in the delicate and intricate machinery of recollection. And from the strange corners of perception, we now compare the human brain to those of other creatures. The sperm whale's brain weighs about 8 kilograms. The sperm whale possesses the largest brain of any creature that has ever lived on Earth, weighing roughly 8 kilograms, several times heavier than even the largest human brain. However, brain size alone does not reliably determine intelligence, since much of that enormous mass is devoted to managing a body that can reach 18 meters in length. What we know of whale cognition suggests complex social behavior, sophisticated communication, and perhaps something resembling culture passed between generations, though the inner life of a whale remains largely, profoundly, and deeply mysterious. We can only imagine what thoughts move through that vast and silent neural landscape as the whale dives into darkness. The largest brain in the ocean does not necessarily think human thoughts. It thinks whale thoughts, profoundly shaped by a dark and alien world we barely understand. Crows remember faces and can hold grudges for years. Crows have demonstrated a remarkable capacity for facial recognition, able to reliably identify individual humans who have previously threatened or actively helped them, and to remember these distinctions for years and years afterward. A crow that was once harassed by a particular person will scold and dive at that individual even after a long absence, while treating harmless and familiar people neutrally. More remarkably still, crows appear to teach this information to others, spreading knowledge of dangerous faces quickly through the flock. Young crows that never encountered the threat themselves will still react with alarm when they see the face their elders warned them about. The humble crow carries a detailed mental database of friend and foe, updated continuously. These clever birds simply do not forget a face. They remember clearly and precisely, and they choose carefully how to respond accordingly. Each octopus arm acts almost like its own mind. Unlike most animals, the octopus distributes much of its nervous system throughout its 8 arms, with each limb containing a remarkably dense cluster of neurons capable of independent sensory processing and autonomous decision-making. An arm can independently explore, taste, and grasp objects without waiting for instructions from the central brain, which acts more as a coordinator than a strict commander issuing orders. This decentralized intelligence allows the octopus to perform complex tasks with remarkable efficiency, though it raises deeply fascinating philosophical questions about what consciousness means in such a creature. Each arm seems to have its own local awareness, responding to the world in real time. Is there one octopus mind or 9 overlapping ones? The question has no easy answer, and perhaps it never will. The octopus is a beautiful, unsettling, and endlessly fascinating puzzle made entirely of arms. Dolphins sleep with only half their brain at a time. Dolphins cannot simply drift off like land mammals because they must surface regularly to breathe. And so, they have evolved the truly remarkable ability to sleep with only one hemisphere of the brain at a time while the other remains fully awake to monitor respiration and keep watch for danger. This unihemispheric sleep means that a dolphin is, in a sense, always half awake, never fully surrendering to the depths of unconscious rest, even for a single moment. The arrangement allows them to swim continuously, even while sleeping, gliding through dark waters with one eye gently closed and one open. Mother dolphins can stay constantly alert to protect their vulnerable calves while still getting the rest they need. Sleep for a dolphin is not a full absence of awareness or consciousness. It is merely a gentle, gradual, and partial dimming. Bays solve problems and recognize faces with tiny brains. Despite possessing brains smaller than a single grain of rice, honeybees demonstrate impressively sophisticated cognitive abilities, including the remarkable capacity to learn complex routes, communicate precise directions to nectar sources through intricate dance, and even recognize human faces when trained to associate them with rewards. Their tiny neural circuits achieve remarkable efficiency, extracting remarkably sophisticated behaviors from minimal hardware that would seem laughable by mammalian standards. Researchers have even trained bees to count, to understand the concept of zero, and to distinguish between paintings by different artists. The bee's brain suggests that intelligence does not require massive processing power, only clever organization and the right evolutionary pressures applied over time. Size is not the true measure of a mind. Efficiency is. The humble and industrious bee thinks quietly and brilliantly within its remarkably limited means. Elephants mourn their dead with their emotional brains. Elephants display behaviors around death that look remarkably like grief, returning to the bodies of fallen companions, caressing the remains with their trunks, standing in silent vigil for hours at a time, and sometimes refusing to leave for extended and solemn periods. Their brains possess large limbic systems, the regions associated with emotion, suggesting the capacity for deep feeling. Whether they experience grief as humans do remains uncertain, but the consistency of their mourning rituals across populations suggests something more than instinct. They have been observed gently touching the bones of elephants that died long ago, as if remembering still. The elephant does not simply walk away from its dead. It lingers and it returns. It seems to remember, and in the act of remembering, it seems to feel something we may never fully understand. Food-storing birds grow larger brains in autumn. Certain species of birds that cache food for winter, such as chickadees and nutcrackers, undergo a seasonal expansion of the hippocampus as autumn approaches, enhancing their spatial memory to more accurately track the many thousands of hiding spots they have carefully created. The brain literally grows to meet the particular demands of the season, then shrinks again when the task is done and spring returns. This annual cycle of neural growth and reduction is one of the most dramatic and striking examples of adult brain plasticity in nature, demonstrating that even the structure of the brain is not fixed, but responds to environmental demands. The bird rebuilds part of its brain each and every year, tailored precisely to the challenge ahead. The changing season quietly transforms the bird from the inside out. The bird's remarkable and extraordinary brain faithfully adapts. Rats dream about the mazes they explored. When rats sleep after navigating a maze, recordings of their brain activity show patterns that very closely mirror what was seen while they were actually running through the corridors, suggesting they are faithfully replaying the experience in their dreams. This replay is thought to be an important part of memory consolidation, helping the brain carefully transfer new information into long-term storage. The patterns are so precise that researchers can often tell which part of the maze the sleeping rat is dreaming about based on the neural signature alone. The implication is that dreams, even in rats, may serve a real purpose beyond mere random firing, helping the mind reinforce what was learned when awake. The sleeping rat does not simply rest in stillness. It runs the maze again, this time in the quiet and vivid theater of its own sleeping mind. Let these creatures and their minds fade gently into the distance. You do not need to remember them all. Simply breathe and let the stillness deepen. The 10% myth is entirely false. The popular claim that humans only use 10% of their brains is a myth with no basis whatsoever in neuroscience. Brain imaging studies consistently show that virtually all regions of the brain have some function and are active at different times, depending on what particular tasks are being performed at any given moment. The myth may persist because it offers the seductive and deeply comforting idea that vast untapped potential lies dormant somewhere within, waiting to be unlocked. But the truth is that the brain is already operating at full capacity, simply allocating resources efficiently based on the shifting demands of each moment. There is no hidden reservoir of untapped genius quietly waiting to be discovered deep inside you. The brain already uses what it has, and what it has is already more than enough. Intelligence depends on organization, not just brain size. A larger brain does not automatically mean a more intelligent or smarter creature, because what truly matters most is how the brain is internally organized, how efficiently its neurons are connected, and how its circuitry supports the tasks the animal needs to perform. Whales and elephants have larger brains than humans, but the remarkable human brain is distinguished by its proportionally massive cortex, dense connectivity, and specialization in functions like language and abstract thought that set us apart. The ratio of brain to body matters, but so does the internal design, the layering, folding, and wiring that determines what the brain can actually do. Organization rather than sheer size is what grants cognitive power. A small, well-wired brain can outperform a large, disorganized one. Brain power is ultimately about architecture and careful internal design, not just raw volume or sheer size. The brain cannot truly multitask. Despite what it may feel like when you juggle several tasks at once, the brain does not actually perform multiple complex activities simultaneously. Instead, it switches rapidly between them, which creates the very convincing illusion of multitasking, but comes with very significant hidden costs in speed and accuracy. Each switch requires the brain to reorient, reload working memory, and refocus attention, all of which take time and energy. Studies have repeatedly and consistently shown that people who try to multitask perform worse on each individual task than if they had done them sequentially. The feeling of productivity is often an illusion, masking the errors and slowdowns that accumulate with every switch. True parallel processing is limited to automatic functions. For any conscious, deliberate work, one thing at a time is always and unavoidably best. You are never purely left-brained or right-brained. The popular idea that some people are logical left-brainers while others are creative right-brainers is a dramatic and deeply misleading oversimplification of how the brain actually works in its daily functioning. While the two hemispheres do show some specialization, with language processing often stronger on the left and spatial reasoning on the right, virtually every single cognitive task involves coordinated activity across both hemispheres working in harmony. Modern brain imaging studies find no convincing evidence that healthy individuals favor one hemisphere over the other in meaningful ways. Creativity, logic, art, and analysis all require both sides working together, passing information constantly back and forth through the corpus callosum. The balanced brain uses both sides simultaneously, integrating their contributions into a single unified experience. You are not half a brain. You are the whole, magnificent, astonishing, and extraordinary thing. And from the myths we leave behind, we turn to the future, the frontiers of brain science still being explored. Scientists are building interfaces that read thoughts. Researchers are making remarkable progress in brain-computer interfaces, devices that can detect subtle patterns of neural activity and translate them into commands, text, or even speech. Current technology has already allowed paralyzed individuals to move robotic arms with their thoughts, type sentences by imagining the movements, and communicate in ways that would have seemed like pure science fiction just a generation ago. The accuracy and operating speed of these systems continue to improve as machine learning algorithms grow better at decoding the brain's complex signals. In recent experiments, people who had lost the ability to speak have been able to produce words through electrodes implanted in their brains. The frontier between mind and machine is becoming thinner with each passing year. What the brain can imagine, new and rapidly advancing technology may soon make tangibly real. Optogenetics can switch neurons on and off with light. Optogenetics is a revolutionary technique that allows scientists to control specific neurons using carefully focused light, giving researchers truly unprecedented and remarkably fine precision in studying how the brain and its many intricate circuits actually work. By genetically modifying neurons to express light-sensitive proteins, scientists can then activate or silence those exact cells simply by shining a laser, turning brain circuits on and off with remarkable millisecond precision. This remarkable technology has already revolutionized neuroscience research, allowing experiments that reveal causal relationships between specific neurons and behaviors. Scientists have used it to implant false memories in mice and to dramatically reverse symptoms of depression in animal models. It remains largely a laboratory tool for now, but its implications for future medical therapies are profound. Light becomes a precise and delicate switch for the mind. The brain becomes a playable and responsive instrument. Researchers are mapping every connection in the brain. One of the grand challenges of modern neuroscience is to create a complete connectome, a detailed and truly comprehensive map of every connection between every neuron in a brain. For simple organisms like the roundworm, this has already been achieved, revealing the full and complete wiring diagram of a nervous system with just a few hundred cells. For the human brain, with its billions of neurons and trillions of synapses, the task is astronomically more complex and daunting, but progress is being made using advanced imaging and artificial intelligence that can trace pathways no human eye could follow. New technologies can now trace individual neurons through brain tissue, building the map one single cell at a time. The goal is to understand the brain as a complete and unified network. When the map is finally complete, the organ may at long last begin to explain itself. AI now detects early disease from brain scans. Artificial intelligence algorithms are increasingly capable of detecting subtle and early signs of brain disease in scans long before a human radiologist would notice them with the naked eye. These systems have been carefully trained on many thousands of medical images to recognize early markers of conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and certain tumors, flagging concerns that might otherwise go completely unnoticed until symptoms appear. Early detection can be critical, opening windows for treatment when it is most likely to be effective, giving patients and doctors precious time that would otherwise be lost. The machine sees patterns invisible to the human eye, subtle asymmetries, faint shadows, changes too gradual for a human to catch. It does not replace the experienced and careful human doctor, but it may see what even the very best and most attentive doctor misses. Some scientists explore uploading or restoring memories. At the cutting edge of neuroscience, some researchers are exploring the possibility of recording, storing, and even restoring memories using technology. Early experiments in animals have shown that patterns of brain activity associated with a specific memory can be captured and later reactivated to trigger recall. The leap to human memory upload or restoration remains far off and is fraught with profound ethical questions, but the theoretical possibility is being seriously investigated. If successful, such technology could one day help people who have lost memories to injury or disease, though the implications raise deeply profound questions about personal identity and privacy. Whether it will ever be possible to truly preserve a memory outside the brain remains uncertain. The idea is deeply tantalizing and thrilling. The reality is still distant and uncertain, but not entirely unimaginable. And from the frontier of science, we return to the present moment and the quiet wonder of consciousness. No one understands how matter creates consciousness. Despite centuries of philosophy and decades of neuroscience, no one has convincingly explained how physical matter, the electrochemical activity of billions of neurons, gives rise to subjective experience, the feeling of being you. This is sometimes called the hard problem of consciousness, and it remains stubbornly and profoundly unsolved to this day. We can describe the neural correlates of consciousness, the brain states that accompany awareness, but explaining why there is any experience at all, rather than merely mechanical processing, remains entirely beyond our current grasp. You are made of atoms that have no awareness whatsoever, yet somehow their arrangement produces a being that wonders about its own existence. The brain produces the mind, but how it does so remains a mystery. Science has carefully and painstakingly mapped the machinery. The magic still somehow eludes all measurement and explanation. Your brain constructs reality rather than receiving it. The world you experience is not a passive recording, but an active construction assembled by the brain from fragmentary and incomplete sensory data, prior expectations, long-held beliefs, and learned patterns accumulated throughout your entire life so far. The brain fills in blind spots, silently corrects for processing delays, and carefully edits the stream of perception so seamlessly that you never notice the gaps or inconsistencies. What seems like direct contact with reality is actually a highly processed and polished simulation, built in the darkness of the skull from raw electrical impulses and best guesses about what lies beyond. Every color, sound, and sensation is a creation of the mind rather than a property of the external world. Reality, as you know and experience, it is a vast and ongoing construction project. The brain is both the architect and the only audience. Your sense of self is a process, not a thing. When you look for the self, the essential you that persists through all experience, you find not a fixed object, but an ongoing and shifting process. A continuous weaving of memory, perception, emotion, and anticipation that creates the deeply compelling illusion of a stable and coherent identity. The brain generates this familiar sense of selfhood moment by moment, and when certain regions are damaged or chemically altered, the self can fragment, strongly suggesting that what feels like a unified core is actually a dynamic construction. The you of this moment is not identical to the you of yesterday, though it feels continuous. Every night you dissolve quietly into sleep, and every morning you reassemble. You are not a fixed and permanent noun. You are a living verb, a doing rather than a being, continuously recreated by the brain's quiet, creative, and ceaseless activity. Even as you sleep, your brain keeps you safe. At this very moment, your brain is working quietly to maintain your safety, regulating your breathing, monitoring your heartbeat with careful precision, and filtering the sounds around you for anything that might require immediate awakening. The sleeping brain remains remarkably vigilant in ways you never consciously notice, always alert to potential danger while allowing the conscious mind to rest peacefully through the night. It processes the day's memories, clears metabolic waste, and prepares itself quietly for tomorrow, all while you drift peacefully unaware. This ancient and tireless watchfulness has protected countless generations through the vulnerable hours of darkness. Sleep is not absence or emptiness or mere stillness. It is essential and vital maintenance, performed by a faithful guardian that never fully sleeps. You are gently cared for by the very organ that reads and hears these words. And so the quiet wonders of the brain begin to fade softly into the stillness of the night. We have wandered through 86 billion neurons and trillions of connections. From the hidden structures that keep you breathing to the mysterious spark of consciousness, from the sleeping mind to the memories that shape who you are, from the brains of creatures across the animal kingdom to the frontiers of science yet to be explored, we have glimpsed, just briefly, the most intricate object in the known universe, the one resting now inside your own skull. If these quiet journeys help you rest, consider joining us again. There are more gentle wonders waiting in the silence. Subscribe if you would like to drift off with us again and help us build a place where curiosity becomes calm, one sleepy soul at a time. Right now, as you listen, your brain is still working on your behalf. It is filtering these words, processing their meaning, and gently beginning to let go of the waking world. It does not need instructions. It knows how to rest. Trust it. Let your eyes close if they have not already. Let your breath find its own rhythm, slow and steady, like the pulse of something ancient and patient. Let the muscles of your face soften, your jaw unclench, your shoulders release. There is nothing left to do tonight. The world will wait until morning. Tonight, as you rest, your brain continues its quiet work. It will consolidate memories from the day. It will clear away toxins that accumulated while you were awake. It will dream, perhaps, in images you will not remember. It will keep your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your body safe. You are a small, warm presence within this vast universe of thought, peacefully resting among the wonders. Sleep well, sweet dreams, and may you carry with you the quiet knowledge that the greatest mystery in the universe is not out among the stars. It is here, now, resting gently behind your eyes. This has been Drowsy Discovery. Good night.